So how certain can Dr. Fauci be when he rules out lockdowns? Because this is something that's going to really matter in terms of the global markets response to the Delta variant in the United States. And vaccines working is part of the story, but vaccines have to be in arms for them to work.
Right, absolutely, Anna. And, I have huge respect for Dr. Fauci, as I'm sure a lot of us do, and the world should. But I don't really like certainty in this particular context, because I think we've proven several times that being certain of anything is not really right when it comes to the coronavirus. The point is, you walk a very fine line as a public official in terms of if you say that, oh yeah, sure, lockdowns will come back, you have to keep wearing masks, that might put people off thinking, well, what's the point of me going to take the vaccine? Which is a fair question to ask. So I think the probability is significantly lower because we've got a very effective vaccine even against the Delta variant. So given that lockdowns are for protecting healthcare systems mostly, then with what he knows now, I think that's a fair comment to make.
Sam, I know this is a moving target, but I'm curious on how the thinking is evolving on the percentage of a population needed to be fully vaccinated for a country to, get herd immunity. And I realise it's not an instant thing that you reach that target, you suddenly have herd immunity. It's that you can learn to live with it. There was talk that 70% was the rough target, and then we kind of said, oh wait, these vaccines are very effective, and now we've got Delta and people are saying maybe we need a higher number. What is the latest thinking around that?
Yeah, the thing is, Mark, you have to think about the problem of variants that you cannot calculate today what variant might be around in 3 months' time and how evasive it could be, or maybe not, right? And then you've got the other layer on top of that. We don't know how long this is. This is the first time we've done this. We don't know how long the protection of the vaccines lasts when it comes to mild infections. So calculating, excuse me, a herd immunity number, community immunity number is pretty much impossible, but historically above 70% has been a good number. But that is 70% of everybody. And, there's no country in the world that's got that sort of thing in the large developed nations, right? So that's the problem, and to get to that point is a long way off.
Yeah, interesting. Singapore, just a line across the Bloomberg just now, Sam, saying Singapore says 61% of residents are fully vaccinated, and that in quite a small population, but that is a high number for a population, for a whole population, isn't it, to have received a vaccine. So the conversation in the UK certainly turning towards booster shots, Sam. Is that something that's very much on your radar? What does the call for booster shots from governments do in terms of vaccine demand and vaccine pricing, which is something that is increasingly on the radar?
Yeah, the deal that Pfizer had signed with the Europeans, I don't know why it suddenly became news. I think we always felt that it had a higher value per dose than it did for the first round. It spread over a longer time frame, and you're coming out of the pandemic, so you can charge a little bit more. But of course, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, and all the vaccine makers are pretty much giving away their vaccines in the low-income countries. The issue with boosters, though, Anna, is that you've got to make a decision as to what you care about. If you care about any numbers of infections, people catching an infection, whether it's mild or not, then I think you're going to have to use a booster. And I think Israeli data shows that, and probably we'll find that from other countries too. But if you're focused on hospitalizations and deaths, then you can use boosters in a much more clever way and just look at, who might need it, at what age group, etc. But it takes time to figure that out. So maybe the first time round, you just go, okay, well, anyone over the age of 50, let's just give them a jab, and just to be sure. And then from then on, you can start doing some more clever analysis.
Sam, during this show, we flagged that the only really kind of obvious risk to markets this week, not longer term, is the situation around the virus in China. I'm curious in getting your perspective there about how much of a threat this is, how they might change in terms of their lockdowns, or kind of, how relaxed you are or not.
Yeah, I don't want to be a doom monger, but at the end of the day, you have the Delta variant, which in a country that's been really effective at managing its infection rates, has suddenly turned up in 14, I think, different provinces. And you have, unfortunately, vaccines being used in China, which, against the original version of the virus, were pretty effective, at least in preventing severe disease. But they are likely, given what we know, and this is drawing some conclusions which are not based on absolute new data against the Delta variant, likely to be less effective against Delta than the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, for example. So if in China, the world depends on the fact that everything's open and people can freely access the ports and run all that, there is a risk that with the lower effectiveness of the vaccines, Delta is more troublesome there and perhaps leads to some severe closures and lockdowns.